Welcome. This is All Things Equal, and I'm Holly Burrow. This podcast is dedicated to the ESOs who make entrepreneurship support possible. On my journey of building EQALL, which we've fondly begun calling the BSO for ESOs, I've had the honor of hosting conversations with amazing humans doing impactful work across the globe. Somewhere on that journey, I realized that everyone that does this work needs to hear the wild, wonderful, and intricate stories that I was hearing. That's why we're here. I want to shine a light on the people building the info programs and support systems that help founders thrive. We'll dig into what's working, what's not, and the lessons learned from the front lines of entrepreneurial support. If you're an ESO, this show is for you because your work powers the future of entrepreneurship, and we are so here for it. Welcome, Dave.
Holly, first, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And it's my great pleasure to be here. So I am Super Dave Quinn. Everybody calls me that. I run Day One Experts, which is a fractional economic development organization. I'm 20 years in the economic development field. I'm a certified economic developer and created this Day One Experts as a way to take all of the experience and expertise and contacts that we had built up over the last, 20 years to help other economic development organizations. We kept having people come to us and say, hey, y'all did it, but I'm working with another community and they don't get it, or they're not understanding what I'm trying to say. And what we realized was there was the public side who had tools and wants to help. Then you have the private side that knows they need the tools or could use the tools, but they don't know how to say what they need in a way that the city knows how to help them. And then there's a third piece where you have these high net worth individuals looking to place money into projects. So, every project needs capital and a place to happen and somebody with an idea. So we play in that space where we work on the private side some, we work on the public space, and then we also bring the capital to these different projects. And so it's fractional economic development, but we play on the public-private side, bringing those two together. Really, we say we're the translator, right? We understand, here, let me show you how to package this so the city understands what it can do to actually help you. And then we help the city say, okay, here's all the tools you have. Here's how you actually use those tools to help this project. And so it's been very rewarding. Yeah, we started in 2018 and here we are, 2026. I'm sitting in Fairview, Texas today. They're one of our clients. Basically, I am their economic development department. When somebody calls or emails, it comes to our team and we work on stuff for them. And then we have also what's called the Texas Economic Development Connection. We help small to medium-sized business owners looking to move here. If you can imagine, if you've never been to Texas, it's a pretty big place. And so if you're trying to move from California or New York, New Jersey, and you start Googling Texas, it's a big place and you get overwhelmed pretty quick with all the different options. And if you're a small business owner, you're not getting a lot of help because you're not going to get a ton of incentives. So there's not a lot of money there to pay site consultants to help you. And they can use our free resource, the Texas Economic Development Connection. And we basically are sort of like a concierge service that's free to them. Our members pay to be part of that. And so it's kind of like a lighthouse in the sea of information. Hey, here's one place you can come. Let us understand what it is you're looking for. And then we help you get connected with other economic developers whose job it is to help you get that done fast. So that's what we do.
I really, really love that. And I remember meeting you when I was sort of new to, I call it, I came to the other side of the table. Like I spent years being an entrepreneur. And then in 2019, I made the flip and started serving entrepreneurs through a CDFI. And I think that's around the timeline I met you originally. And I remember just deeply being confused. I'm a super connector and I was like, I don't know who I would connect him with. I don't know who I'm meant to find for him. And that's the way I view my value in the world. I'm supposed to connect people who you're basically baked to serve is those that actually don't know what to do with economic development because they're too small for it to have ever been something that bubbled up into their world meaningfully enough. And so I think that's that niche you're sitting in.
Yeah, so I always kind of laugh. I went through 10 KSB and was sitting in a room and I say, oh, you have, there's an economic development person in your community that helps. And they will look and say, no, not in my community. Nope, we don't have that. I'm like, no, I guarantee you, I've been in the business 20 years. I know the guy that's supposed to help you. We're so bad as economic development I don't know why that is. We try really hard to market ourselves, but we sort of miss for some reason. And so, yeah, I get that quite a bit of, now, who are you again? And like, how am I supposed to help you? And I'm like, it is hard to explain.
I will say that it flipped a switch in my head from that point forward of trying to figure out, why have I missed this? Because it's another thing. I mean, everybody has things like that in their life where they're like, how did I miss the memo on this for 30 years? Like, what, how did I not know this was happening? I've owned storefront restaurants. I've done all kinds of things where by all means I should have known what this field was, how to tap into it, what to do with it. Nobody ever mentioned it. Nobody ever said a single word. I never bumped against anybody that that's what they did. So there was no natural inclusion in it. And
Right.
so since then, I've been like, we have to change that. Like, this can't only apply to extremely large businesses that understand what this is and how to utilize it. So there's a huge element of that for me as I have gone about trying to figure out, how do I connect those dots? How do I make sure that economic developers are able to serve the communities in the ways that I know they want to now? I didn't know that then, but I know that now. And how can I help the business owners actually understand what to do with this really rich resource that they didn't know was even there?
Well, and sometimes it's in our language, right? As a small business owner, you got so many different things. And a lot of times it comes, what do you need? Well, I need money. Well,
Always.
if you go to an economic developer and you say, "I need money," that's a hard way to start a conversation, right? Because I don't know how to help you as in, like, if you're a small business owner, I don't just have extra money laying around where I can hand you. So it's really about understanding, again, what is your need? And it might not be money. It might be a connection that economic developer has. Well, there's somebody else in the community you need to connect with, or in my social sphere, here's who you need to work with, or you need to try this program. That is the help, but a lot of times as small business owners, we just don't know how to ask for help. And as economic developers, we're guessing at what you need. I always tell people I would be a much better day-to-day economic developer now that I've owned a business, because I used to think I knew what business owners' stress was, and I understand. Now that I've actually woken up at 2 in the morning in a cold sweat thinking about something, I'm like, I get it now, right? Like, I get how 30 days for an economic developer is nothing. Like, we think in terms of years. To a business owner, 30 days mean I'm still in business or I'm not.
Yes.
And so anyway, I think that is just a language, and we have people that want to help, we have people that need help. We just don't have a conversation that really kind of gets us in a place that works.
Let me ask you this. What are, like, say, the top 3 to 5 things that you wish business owners knew about economic development that might actually help them better understand how to utilize it? What do you think are things that just get missed?
Yeah, yeah. So first and foremost, it's not about incentives. Most business owners think I'm too small. I don't need incentives. It's the government. They're never going to help. Economic developers, it's about connecting with a person in their ecosystem, right? If you want to move into a community, you want to understand what's going on in that community, the economic developer's job is to be a connector. I might not be able to hand you a check, but I could put you into contact with 3 different people who might could hire you doing whatever you need, right? So it's that, first and foremost, it's, you matter to every community. You just got to figure out how to ask and what that looks like. I think number 2 is to be open. Sometimes we get locked in as business owners of, this is the only path forward. I just need X. Maybe, maybe not. You got to be open to an economic developer's extra creativity, right? So, like, be open to that creative solution, and it might not be a direct path. It may be sort of a roundabout way.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe it's getting on a podcast and just telling your story, and somehow that unlocks somebody who needed what you needed, but you didn't know that. You were like, no, 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 I don't have time for that. I've just got to get X done. I think that's another big piece that we miss. And I think the other big piece is just how different it is from town to town. We kind of
Yeah.
joke about this. Like, in Collin County, there's 11 different economic development offices. They all do things extremely different, right? And so as a business owner, that also matters to you, because where you fit, you might be a better fit personality wise in an ecosystem. And so starting with the economic developer might give you an insight into that before you lease a building and find out 6 months later that this town doesn't fit me. And so I think that's something is, again, leaning on the economic developer to kind of help navigate some of that. It's a great place to sort of start your search and your foray into a business, because it might just be an idea that they have. Hey, have you talked to Janet? Janet over in this whatever, you should talk to her. And then that one spark kind of lights a fire, right?
Sure. No, I love that. And one of the things that the gap that we're trying to figure out how to solve for is we have entrepreneurship support organizations that function in a very specific manner. And then you have economic development offices that operate almost parallel, but they don't touch and they don't talk to each other very much. And so we're trying to figure out like how can we be the ping pong ball that goes in between the two spaces and helps build the connection between the two functionalities, because for me from my vantage point, that's really a missing piece in almost every community that we go into is everybody that is part of economic development, everybody that is part of entrepreneurship support, they all want to help the small business owners, but they're not all coming together always in a meaningful way to be able to do that. And a lot of the programs that we have come in and helped rebuild or support in other ways, that's an element. Like many of the people working in those programs have never even heard of it, much like me when I met you. Like I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to tap into it. So we're trying to figure out how can we build some of the bridges between the services that exist over here and the services that exist over here and connect them for the business owners because there's a huge gap.
Yeah. And I think, sometimes each organization or entity is trying to prove up their value in the marketplace. And so they're scared or fearful of giving up or sharing that. And we spend a lot of time consulting for communities across the US, and we always go into a community and there's like these pillars. And how do you get these pillars? They're not silos. How do you make sure they're pillars, not silos, right? That sounds sort of strange, but how do you have these conversations similar to what you're talking about of how does it all work together and not fearful of, I don't care who gets credit, right? Like if we've been able to have this person have success, I don't need you to think I was the organization that led that. You have to be secure enough in your value proposition to the marketplace. And that can be challenging sometimes. You talk about chambers and Main Street managers, and then you have, the small business development office. And some folks, they have to have quotas and they're checking boxes or else, they don't get their funding. And so that can be a challenging environment. And at the small business level, man, you're just trying, like, could someone just help me?
Please just figure out how to do this. Like
Yes. Well, and
forever. I remember having a really bizarre challenge when I owned a restaurant. We had a really strange signage problem because we were on a weird, like 5 cross instead of a regular 4 cross.
uh-huh.
And we were trying to figure out, like, how can we get signage put up at an angle that, because we were missing a huge amount of the audience that was just drive by
Yeah.
because they literally couldn't see us because of the angle that they entered at. And I never did actually, in fact, get that figured out. And I tried and I didn't know who to talk to. I talked to building owners, I talked to all kinds of people, but I know now that I might have been barking up all the wrong trees. Like,
I always say it's funny in economic development, we're the yes people, right? We hate to say no. We like to find a way to say yes. That's where it starts, right? The economic developers, how do we get to a yes? What's the problem? How do we solve it? And then here's who we go and talk to about trying to get there. And that just comes a lot easier when you have somebody on the inside saying yes. Everything is yes. How do we get to yes? Versus, if you call the planning department up, it's either, and it's not their fault. It's not like they don't want to help you. It's just the laws are, and the ordinance say, here is the ordinance. It either works or it doesn't. All right. So, and it only says it like, if you call yourself this, then it doesn't fit. But if you call yourself this, it does fit. They only answer the question of, you said this, it doesn't fit. So I'm like, what if we say it this way? Right. So
what if we thought outside the box and came at it from this other angle
again,
over here?
it's not their fault, or I'm not saying that they're bad people or they don't want to help you. They generally want to try to help you. It's just sometimes they're not, that's our value as economic development. Why you want to know us is that we sometimes can figure out, okay, who do we need to talk to and how do we get to the yes? And maybe the language is like, what are we missing out on a sales tax level, right? What's the economic impact to the city by not having that signage? Well, they're
Yeah.
driving past you and they're going just outside the city limits and having the next city over get that because they didn't know you existed. So then you start to talk a language that matters to the city, right? Like we're that's our way of creating revenue to the city is sales tax and property tax. So anyway, it's about knowing that's the language, right? If you just go in and say we want more business and nobody's seeing us,
Yeah.
that doesn't move
And
the
I
needle.
just was too inexperienced and didn't have anybody in my life, honestly, that had ever run a business or been in this world in any way to be like, "Hey, you're barking up the wrong tree. Look over here. There's all these people
Yeah.
that wanna help." Like, so I feel like there's an element in me that is like, I want people to better understand how to use the tools within their communities to be able to do the things they need to do. And one of the things that we've had the opportunity to work with communities across the country that are supporting Main Street districts, and that's one of our favorite things to do in that environment is help them better understand how to pull in more revenue on the tiny bit of square footage they have on their adorable street that all the tourists come see, and we want to respect that and we want to help build it. How can we help them better understand what revenue looks like, how to diversify that, how can we build it? And a lot of times for us that means working with economic development to understand what else is available within the community that we might be able to pull revenue through for them, and understanding how to connect those dots. Like recently we had somebody that was they were doing really high end like lotions and things like that, and they're really adorable Main Street shop, and they were barely making it. I mean, every single month's rent was a struggle. But right behind Main Street was this lovely row of like B&B places, and it had never occurred to them that they had a market outside of retail. And so for us, it was simply a matter of sitting down and figuring out where else is revenue flowing in the city and how might we actually help them pull more revenue from more angles.
Right. So
And
that's
it changed their revenue flow completely.
so that's the kind of stuff that I mean, I love to work on those kind of projects. What you might find is it's really hard to do business locally, right? So I don't know
It's
if you've ever
really
run into
hard.
it. Sometimes people complain and you're like, well, the problem is it's just really hard to do business with you. You're like, and so the fix for that though is the economic developer now knows, okay, is there infrastructure I can build or teach or put in place that makes it easy, right? So we worked with an economic developer, and one of the things he did was he helped businesses go online. They'd never been in e-commerce, they'd never had a website. And it was amazing to watch what he did because they kind of came in kicking and screaming, and they came out with two different revenue sources that they before were like, no, no, I only want to do it this way, until they couldn't do it that way and they were forced. But that was like, for me, infrastructure isn't just street water and sewer. It could be helping, retailers understand different markets and tapping into environment that they may be missing out on.
One of the realizations that I had when I was a small business owner in a more traditional sense was I didn't understand how hard it was for people around me to actually find me because I'm doing my most. Like I'm spending every penny I can on marketing. I'm doing all the things that know how to do and can possibly do. And yet people would like find me because someone made a referral or whatever. And they would be like, "You're amazing. How have I been missing you for all these years?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I've been trying."
That clicked for me. I'm an avid reader and leadership development and those sort of things, and so I just think everybody knows everybody that I've because I mean they're so amazing, and I am blown away every time I mention, hey, do you know like Tony Robbins, for example, something like that. Like you think everybody knows Tony Robbins, well then you meet people and like, who are you talking about? And I'm like, how could you not know this iconic person? And then I think, okay, well, they spend lots of money and have lots of teams and effort doing it. Why would I expect people would know what I'm doing if I'm not matching that same sort of energy? You're like, start to realize the world is a lot, can be pretty big and people just don't know.
No, it's really funny. I had a conversation with somebody that is a ecosystem builder and very active in this community that I circulate within. And we met a little less than a year ago at this point, and he was just shocked that he didn't know me. Like he was like, "How have I been missing you? You've been doing this for 5 years. I love what you're doing. How can I help? How can I like help you grow? Because what you're doing is really cool." And what was so funny is like we've literally been like we tracked back. We've literally been in the room together probably 50 times. But we never had a reason to interact, and we never had a reason to learn about each other. And I think that's something that everybody generally underestimates is how do you disseminate knowledge about things that are happening? How do you create connection? How do you help people better understand what's happening in their own community to get the support that they actually are seeking? So let me ask you, as an economic developer, when you meet new people that are not part of the existing bubble, how do you explain what you do to them?
Man, my wife would tell you he talks a lot. I start thinking, okay, I've been in this business 20 years. I got to start back at the beginning. She's like, they don't want the 20-year version,
They
right?
mean all that.
And that's it's a difficult question because I'm also thinking, okay, wait a minute. I could help you this way or I could help you that way. I'm trying to, in my mind, understand what is it, like when you said earlier, I didn't know how to connect with you because I didn't understand what you do. So I start really with, it's going to sound funny. Like, I'm from the government. I'm here to help, right? Yeah, right. But that's honestly like I'm paid to find a way to help you. I'm a problem solver. What I tell people is what I get paid to do is solve problems all day long. Now, I don't know if I can solve your problem until I know what your problem is. But once I understand it, then I can set about solving it. It might not be me, but it might be, hey, I know Holly, and Holly's really good at solving the problem that you have. So you should connect with her, right? So what I always start with very simply is to say, I'm an economic developer. I'm paid to solve problems. And then I start asking questions and I start understanding what it is they do, what is it they need, and sometimes they don't know what they need. And that is the problem is, again, I need money. Well, we all need money, right? It's about being resourceful, right? Like there's never enough resources. So how can you be resourceful? And I feel like our role is to help business owners become resourceful. What is it that you really need and how do I backfill for that? Maybe it comes out of my economic development incentive grant budget or whatever, or maybe not. Maybe I make a call to somebody I know at the state level or the workforce board or the college or, name the entity. Once I understand your problem, I set about trying to solve that for you and really help you solve it. I might not necessarily be the person that actually solves it, but I help you solve it.
I like that. I feel like we approach it from a very similar angle because of what we do. Technical assistance is our core. Like that's primarily what we do. We work one on one with business owners, but we don't. That's not our customer. That's not our client. We work with municipalities and universities, that kind of thing. And one of the things that we are constantly reiterating to all of the coaches that work with us is you have to keep coming up out of the day to day with them because small business owners live in the day to day. They don't know. So to your point of like they may not know actually what they need when they're working with us. It's always a struggle. Like, can we get them out of I need more customers, I need more customers, I need more customers. Do you, or do you maybe need to understand who your customers actually are?
Yeah,
Because
I
that
love
might
that.
actually be the problem. So we're always trying to like, how can we get to core business principles with them and better understand what is the actual problem they're trying to solve? Because while we're not going to solve the problem for them, just like you, we're not going to solve it for them. We probably know resources and humans that can help them get to the solution.
I think that is the most frustrating thing as an economic developer is knowing that you can help, but
Mhm.
not being able to convey that value to the business owner in a way that makes them look up, right? And you're like, oh, I always go back to the Jerry Maguire, help me, help you,
Yep.
right? Like
Yep.
Monday through Thursday, I need to drive traffic, lunch and dinner for restaurants, right? The weekend they've got, but Monday through Thursday. Okay, well, I can do that, but I need this, this, and this. I can't even get them to the, I can't get them to have a meeting together so that I understand what is it we might could do to do that. Like, but I would be willing to spend money. I could do that, but I can't just hand you a check and cover the balance of you not having people in your business Monday through Thursday, right? So I get like that's so frustrating. I know I can help you.
It's so frustrating for us, and we occasionally will come across a business owner that, like, they cannot get out of the day-to-day, they cannot get out of the weeds, and they're very uninterested in us trying to tug them out, and that is the most frustrating thing, because just like you, we see ourselves as, like, it's our job to help you figure out the solution that you're seeking. Like, you probably don't have words for it, especially if you've never done this before. Like, let us help you find the words for what you're trying to solve for.
That's a lot of people. And I've, even as a small business owner, I'm a small business owner, right? I have clients, and even I sometimes get trapped in just doing the day-to-day stuff and don't look up and say, "Wait a minute, long term, maybe I don't need more customers. Maybe I need fewer customers that pay me more." That'd be kind of cool, right? Like, let's do less work and make more money. All right, how do we do that, right? Well, if I've never
How might I achieve that?
right, well, if I've never done it before,
Yeah.
I need somebody who's done that before to say, here's one way you might be able to do it, or here's a lesson. So, you have to be able and willing to look up and say, I don't have the answers, right? Like sometimes we like to just power through it and go, no, no, I'm smart enough. I'm going to figure this out. And that can be, it might take a little while before you realize I'm not as smart as I thought I was. And I'm tired of trying to figure it out.
It's really difficult. I remember, so you mentioned Goldman Sachs, like, I coached with Goldman Sachs as one of their business advisors early on in my journey on this side of the table. And one of the things that I deeply remember is I met someone through that program, and they were coaching people on, like, credit repair. But they and this human had put so much work. I mean, his top of funnel was delightful. Like, he had built this crazy intricate journey to get all the way to the end of the journey where they paid him to work on rebuilding their credit with him. And he was, I mean, he was doing good for what he was doing and where he was at in life. Like, he was not, also not very old. So he had figured out some really cool stuff. And we're working together, and he's getting frustrated. It just feels like, at like every single dollar we earn, I mean, I'm just working so hard for it. And I just looked at him and I was like, well, you're selling to the wrong people. You need to be selling buckets of programs, not singulars. And I mean, he looked at me like he was like, "What?" He's like, "Well, what?" And he starts to panic, and he's like, "Oh, I don't know how to do that." And I was like, "Well, that's why I'm here. Like, that's what we're meant to be doing together, is helping you figure out how to build other revenue streams." I mean, but it had never occurred to him, because he was so busy day to day building this intricate, beautiful funnel journey that
Right.
it
And then
never
doing
occurred
the
to him
work.
there was a whole part of customers. Like,
Yeah. I and I understand how easy it is to get into that trap because you're head
it's
down working and there's so much riding on it and there's stress and emotionally you've got so much invested in it. And for a lot of small business owners, I know some aren't, but a lot of the small business owners I talk to, it's their life and it's not just a business, right? It's their identity, it's everything wrapped into that. And so you're not really just working on a business. You're stepping into someone's life and trying to help them. And so I get, I'm a lot more, again, I'm a lot better economic developer now that I have been on the business side and have a lot more patience now with people who are like before I couldn't understand why you wouldn't want my help. Like, I'm telling you I can help you, but like
Promise I can.
I was like so arrogant and like, I know your pain. I know it's hard. I'm like, I had no idea. I'm like, if you'd have told me, I probably wouldn't have become a business owner. Like, if I'd have known before, I wouldn't have jumped off the cliff. Like nobody told me.
That's
So
I
I'm a
feel like
much more patient now.
I appreciate that, because I feel like one of the fastest ways for me to connect with a business owner is to be like, I know what it feels like to sit on the floor, banging pans, bawling because I can't figure out how to make payroll. And then I get up because the door jingles and a customer is coming in. And that's the end of the story. Like, and you get up and you smile and you do it again.
Just one more day. I'm like, I'll quit tomorrow. I heard that was really great advice somebody once gave me. Just quit tomorrow. Like tomorrow and tomorrow. If you can just make it to the end of the day, you can always quit tomorrow. Yeah, those are days. And I don't know that people understand that and can really, they don't get it. If you've never owned a business, you don't understand that, right? Like, you're like, why don't you just go get
I
a
don't
job? It's so easy. Just go do that.
I don't know how you could understand it if you've never experienced the, as you mentioned, waking up at 2 in the morning. Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah, people are like, "Well, why would you do that?" Well, there's also the other side of that of having the freedom and there's something awesome about building something and I mean, I can't explain that either. I don't know why it's worth it. I can't verbalize why all the pain is worth it, right? Like it just is. There's something about that and being able to do something when and where you want and, and having the control over that. I know we always have customers and they have demands and stuff, but it's still a level of freedom and of I'm in control that is hard to explain.
It's hard to explain, and I was talking with another entrepreneur just a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, "Well, honestly, we're all a little crazy. Like, we you kind of have to be a little crazy to actually be making it work." Because we were talking about, like, our crazy schedules and the weird, like, the discipline it takes to actually maintain and build a business. Like, I wake up at 5 a.m. every morning, and then I do this, and then I do this, but then I plan a nap in the afternoon. So the level of crazy and weird and willingness to mold yourself around what a business needs is very, very different. And so there's a little bit of crazy happening in there. But
That and again, that's like you don't know what you don't know. So you just plow into it and then you start to learn as you go. Had you known all the pain ahead of time, you probably would have not. But, again, my guess is on the other side of all of that is something wonderful that you're gonna that's what you're building to, right? And so I think it's a lot of fun. I don't mind it. There's a lot of stress. I can tell you that I have stretched my wife's comfort rubber band way out from where we started, and it's liable to snap back any second now. But it's been a fun journey, and I think now, I think I'm infinitely better to meet and help small business owners where they are and understand the issues they're dealing with, even if it's not specific to their. I might not know their industry, understand payroll and taxes and government regulations and all of these things that you have to take into consideration. So,
I love that.
first and foremost, economic developers, they exist everywhere. In every community, there's someone's job it is to help the business activity in their communities. And that it is never a bad investment to go by and just say hi and introduce yourself. Even if you don't know why you're going, you have no need. In fact, it's better if you go before you need anything, just to start that relationship and introduce yourself to them. What you'll do is kind of raise their awareness of you in the community, even if, restaurant owner. If I know about you now and I know you personally, well, when someone says, "Where do you wanna meet for lunch?" Now I have like, "Hey, I just met Bob. I'm gonna go check out his restaurant." And I now have an affinity for that. I'm gonna go do that. So it could be as small as that to, something really if you're trying to expand or grow, you don't have to try to do it on your own. Go to the economic development and say, "This is my problem. I'm trying to expand. I'm trying to do this. Here's my gap. Is there anything that can help me get there?" Again, it might not be them. Maybe it's some other program. Maybe it's a SBA loan person that they know that they have a relationship with, and it's it's their recommendation about you that gets you in the door a little bit faster. But just know that there is that person in most communities of any size that will help you. And I think that it's a free resource that you need to plug into, even if you don't understand why you're plugging into it at first. Right? Like, just trust me, the dots connect, just do it, and, that's what I would say.
When I after having many, many conversations with economic developers, I would say the other piece that I wanna, like, layer on top of that is, as a small business owner, don't expect it to happen immediately. Like, you may need to go and talk to somebody, and they may need to sit with it for a week and gel on it and think, okay, I'm like, because it takes a second sometimes to think outside the box. To be like, they said this, but I think they might need this. And I like, there's a lot of dot connecting that happens. And so I want to layer that into that is like when you're thinking about going to an economic developer for support, don't think that it's going to be a real time. I mean, it might be,
Yeah,
but
could be, but
don't always assume that
probably
it's
not.
going to be like, I'm going to walk away from this conversation with a solution. It's you've got to lay it out on the table and then let them take it apart and put the pieces back together because they see different things.
Well, and I think that's so we're again, we're paid to travel and engage in different activities. That's part of our job. And you never know when lightning will strike of like, ooh, that's the solution I've been looking for because and it might be 3 months. That's why I say go before
Exactly.
you really sort of know. Like, but once I understand the business and kind of what you're trying to do, now I'm always sort of looking at holistically, what are things that I could do to help you grow your business? It's kind of in the back of my mind now, right? But you got to put it there. If I don't know about you and we don't have a connection, I don't know to be thinking about.
No, I very much well, and I want to draw the dotted line between like economic development is entrepreneurship support. Like it is. And they don't need to be separate things. In fact, they should be the same thing. But I feel like that's something that we're trying to draw some of the connection to is they are the same thing. And E-led or entrepreneurship-led economic development is sort of just getting a stronger foothold in the world these days than it has gotten, light shined on it in a while. But I feel like that's something it's always been happening. It just hasn't always been called a thing.
Right. I think that's and one thing that is tough is a lot of times entrepreneurship is about innovating, right? You see a problem in the market and so you're solving it. And while we love innovation and to say innovation in our space, we're public dollars and we're definitely afraid of failing. And innovation is a lot of failing, right? So there
Innovation
needs
is
to be a little
terrifying.
padding. There needs to be a little padding between that, right? So if we can invest in a support system that helps that happen. That's much different than going direct and then the risk losing that, right? Unless it's, you know, some cities have an innovation fund and they're willing to play with those dollars, but that's few and far between. So I think what you're, the services you're providing give economic developers the opportunity to invest in infrastructure that then allows that sort of innovation to happen in entrepreneurship where, start and stop, small businesses come and go and that sort of thing, but the infrastructure doesn't. And once we invest in that infrastructure, now we've got it and we can allow the system to work like it's supposed to. So I really like what you guys are bringing to the table because I think it's a nice bridge over that fear of innovation and fear of failure that we have to bump up against when we're talking about public dollars.
Appreciate that because it's definitely been like trying to figure out where we fit in how to support what all of this looks like has been a unique journey. And it changes month over month, and there's always something new happening. So I appreciate that because we are we are an innovation in and of ourselves.
Well, and I feel like it's probably when you're moving from town to town, while at this, like it's the same, right? Like I'm going to say the same stuff, but what that looks like on the ground is very different. I have to come in and understand the community. The principles are the same, right? Infrastructure always drives, but infrastructure is a big term. What does that mean for
Yeah.
every city and what they need? I feel like it is fun. It is innovation happening real time because you're like, okay, how do I take this set of tools and framework and mold it around that city that I'm now working in?
Well, and for us, there's been some really cool things because we work both in super urban spaces and extraordinarily rural spaces. And what we can crosshatch is fascinating. And it's oftentimes not what we thought it would be. Where like we had some stellar learning in an extremely rural community. And we can take that into a downtown metro area and share that piece of knowledge, and it can change the way businesses are operating in that environment. And that's just something I think that is a unique purview that we have because we bounce in between that has been fascinating to me what we can take to and fro and be able to share with the different communities. So cool.
Right. So I love this space because I love to travel and I love to engage with different people, different perspectives. And again, we're problem solvers. At the end of the day, I love to help people figure out how to solve problems. And I feel like we're kindred spirits in that probably. And we
We
love to
are.
do that and then be able to take that knowledge and use it in a way that's totally unexpected, right? What you're talking about. I used to call it bending the rails and making them touch, right? Like where these two parallel things are going this way and then somehow bending them. Now I've got a completely new rail that no one ever expected. Man, I love when those things happen.
No, I love it. Being able to take something from a rural town into like downtown and share some amazing learning that we had from a population 500 town. I mean, that is
amazing to me. And that's what keeps me going is like, I never know when we're going to have a wow moment where I'm like, oh my God, that worked so well.
Those are fun, right? Like I tell my team that, we create, this is a bad analogy, I don't know how else to say it, but we create the storm clouds that lightning strikes out of.
Yeah.
We don't know when and where, but we know if we do this stuff, lightning's going to strike and it's going to be awesome. Yeah. But anyway.
We do a lot. Thank you so much for making time for me today, Dave.
Thank you for tuning in to All Things Equal. If you're inspired by the stories of ESOs driving economic development, subscribe and join the conversation with us. EQALL, the BSO for ESOs, exists to evolve how entrepreneurship support is designed and delivered. We want to share your impact and learn more about how to amplify your organization's work. Let's keep building communities where entrepreneurship is a catalyst for lasting change.